The series begins with a girl named Dora, qualified for a financial aid program, but she said her family was wealthy and didn't need it. However, after her classmates left, she secretly ran to her teacher's office. The teacher, instead of being upset, gave her even more food than the others. She struggled to bring the supplies home, but her cart's wheel broke under the weight, scattering the supplies everywhere. Picking them up was easy, but transporting them back home became a problem. At that moment, a boy approached. With just one glance, Dora developed a crush on this handsome stranger. Upon learning that Dora's house was nearby, the boy helped her carry the supplies to her doorstep. Dora thought he lived nearby and hoped they could meet often, but he revealed his home was thousands of miles away. As he was about to leave, Dora hurriedly asked for his phone number, saying she wanted to repay him someday. At home, Dora's brother scolded her for taking food, but she snapped back, saying if he had a problem, he shouldn't eat the food. Her brother stayed silent and began eating because their mother had been gone for over 10 days, and he couldn't afford to let his pride starve him. Before they could finish eating, a group of creditors barged in, demanding repayment. Unable to find their mother, they threatened to take Dora's younger brother as collateral to force her to appear. Her brother knelt and begged, but it was futile. In the end, Dora saved her brother by threatening to call the police. Somehow, their mother found out about the incident and secretly returned home that night. She took the 3 children and fled to another city. Their new landlord was upset, as the lease was meant for a mother and daughter but now included 4 people. He threatened to evict them unless they paid more rent. Unable to pay, Dora's mother was at a loss until the landlord's father intervened, allowing them to stay. Initially embarrassed, Dora was delighted to discover that the landlord's son was none other than the boy who had helped her earlier. Dora's mother, addicted to gambling, began taking her to various film sets during the day for auditions, where Dora occasionally earned money playing minor roles. At night, her mother forced her to sing at nightclubs, taking all her earnings to fuel her gambling habit. This bleak routine turned Dora's childhood into a colorless existence. The arrival of Pil-sung, however, was like sunlight breaking through the darkness. Just seeing Pil-sung filled her heart with joy. But before long, she noticed that Pil-sung often skipped school and didn't go home regularly. Out of curiosity, Dora followed Pil-sung and discovered that he was skipping school to date an older woman at a local barbershop. Feeling protective, Dora confronted the woman that evening, accusing her of ruining Pil-sung's education. The woman ignored her warning, so Dora threatened to tell their parents unless they broke up. Pil-sung, panicked, bribed her with several plates of rice cakes to keep quiet. Still worried, Dora pretended to want to learn dance, convincing Pil-sung to teach him after school every day. Their happy moments didn't last long. One day, Dora's older brother tried to cook instant noodles for their younger brother but ended up burning his foot. Instead of blaming the older brother, their mother scolded Dora, blaming her for not earning enough to support the family, and even insulted her late husband, making Pil-seung, who overheard everything from outside, feel guilty for causing Dora to get blamed. The next day, Pil-seung offered to accompany Dora to school. Mistaking this as a sign of mutual affection, Dora spent the day grinning with excitement. However, her joy quickly turned to heartbreak when he saw Pil-sung riding a motorcycle with the older woman from the barbershop. Overwhelmed with jealousy, Dora told Pil-sung's mother about the relationship. Furious, she stormed into the barbershop and attacked the woman, causing chaos for both families. Dora soon regretted her actions, especially when Pil-sung ran away that night and got into a motorcycle accident. Fortunately, the incident wasn't entirely about the breakup. Pil-sung had overheard from his grandmother that he was an adopted child, which drove him to act impulsively. Despite this, Dora still felt her relationship with Pil-seung was on shaky ground. Uncovering the truth, Pil-seung didn't blame Dora. Instead, he thanked her for stopping his early romance. Pil-seung resolved to focus on his studies and honor his adoptive parents, who treated him better than a biological son. However, Dora only paid attention to the part about Pil-seung's devotion to family. Just as Duluo was daydreaming about a bright future, her mother caused trouble again. After losing all her money, she sneaked into Pil-seung's house to steal. If not for Pil-seung's kind-hearted grandfather choosing not to press charges, their family would have been evicted and left homeless. Dora, with her strong sense of pride, was deeply humiliated. and couldn't face anyone in Pilsung's household. Thankfully, Pilsung managed to cheer her up with a small toy. Trouble soon found Dora at school when bullies discovered she had appeared in minor TV roles. Mistaking her for wealthy, they demanded regular protection fees. When Dora couldn't pay, they threatened to beat her up. Luckily, Pilsung intervened, but his overly fluffy hair became a target for mockery, and both ended up getting beaten. Surprisingly, Dora, who excitedly asked if Pilsung liked her, Pilsung dismissed the idea, saying he only saw Dora as a younger sibling. Dora dressed up the next day, wearing makeup and padding her shoulders with socks to appear more mature. She tricked Pilsung into taking her to an amusement park, claiming she had never been before. Pilsung believed her and enjoyed the outing, even playing along during silly photo booth sessions. However, when one of the socks fell from Dora's shoulders, Pilsung was stunned and loudly questioned why she had stuffed socks there. Realizing Dora hadn't given up, Pilsung sternly warned her again that he only wanted to focus on her studies and wasn't interested in relationships. Dora finally seemed ready to move on, but Pilsung carelessly added, "We'll see after I turn 20. This gave Dora renewed hope, and she eagerly began counting the days until Pilsung's 20th birthday. Unfortunately, her mother committed another despicable act, using a scam to swindle Goshung's grandfather out of his entire pension. After paying off her gambling debts, she brazenly revealed the truth. Pilsung's grandfather suffered a fatal stroke due to Dora's mother's schemes, passing away before he could be saved. Fearing repercussions, Dora's mother fled overnight with her 3 children. That same evening, she forced Dora to perform at a nightclub to cover living expenses. When Dora refused, she threatened suicide, leaving her no choice but to comply. Unsatisfied with the income, she also pushed Dora to attend countless auditions, hoping she could land a major role and achieve overnight fame. Coincidentally, a major TV production needed a young girl to play a fatherless character. Sharing this experience in real life, Dora performed exceptionally well and secured the role, seemingly setting the stage for a breakthrough. Excited, Dora rushed to share the news with Pilsung, but was met with hostility from Pilsung's mother, who scolded her and warned her to stay away. Unaware of the harm her mother had caused, Dora assumed Pilsung's mother simply disliked her. For years, Dora worked tirelessly, unable to even sleep more than 4 hours a day. Over time, she became South Korea's most successful celebrity, while Pilsung graduated from school and secured a job as an assistant director. Fate brought them back together when Dora's mother accepted, without his knowledge, the lead role in a TV series produced by Pilsung's company. Pilsung immediately recognized the famous actress as his childhood friend. While he didn't hate her, he was reluctant to associate with her, knowing his family's deep resentment toward Dora's mother. Unfortunately, the production had already been scheduled to start in 2 days, leaving no time to replace Dora. The director, desperate to keep the project on track, personally sought out Dora, bringing flowers and pleading with her to take the role. Exhausted from 15 years of non-stop work, Dora hesitated. Despite the director's attempts to persuade her, it was Pilsung who unexpectedly stepped in to support her decision to decline. This surprised the director, but he quickly resorted to an emotional appeal, urging Dora to reconsider. Left with no alternative, Dora decided to speak her truth. First, she pointed out that the offered pay was insultingly low for someone of her status as a top-tier actress, even less than what second-tier stars earned. This hurt her pride deeply. The director, desperate to save the production, tried to persuade her to overlook these issues, but Dora used the opportunity to excuse herself gracefully, while the director was momentarily speechless from frustration. Back home, Dora's mother dismissed her exhaustion, insisting that she might as well act and make money instead of resting. When Dora complained about the pay and firmly stated she wouldn't accept random roles, she also revealed plans to take a 6-month break in New York after finishing her current project. This announcement caused her mother to panic, suddenly switching from dismissive to pleading, as though their survival depended on Dora taking this role. Before the assistant could press further, the station chief unexpectedly arrived asking if anyone had seen Dora. The room froze with tension, especially the assistant, whose heart sank as he realized Dora was seated at a nearby table. The station chief warmly greeted Dora, who responded coldly. She removed her sunglasses and stated that, out of gratitude for the chief's early support during her career, she had intended to cancel her vacation to take the role. However, she was shocked by the disrespect shown by the production team. The station chief was baffled but wasted no time confronting Pil-seung, demanding an explanation. Despite his efforts to explain, Duluo refused to stay. Meanwhile, the director had spent a sleepless night thinking over the situation. Things got worse when the curly-haired assistant director contacted a potential replacement for Dora. The new actress, BB, was willing to accept the small pay. Her over-the-top gratitude melted the director's anger, and he decided on the spot to sign her. However, before the ink could dry, the station chief called with bad news, leaving the director visibly upset. Meanwhile, Dora had just finished shooting her advertisements and was about to board a flight at the airport when Pil-seung showed up, breathless and apologetic. Pil-seung claimed to have misunderstood Dora's earlier refusal and begged her to reconsider the lead role. Confused, Dora brushed him off until her mother called with shocking news. To seal the deal, they sent an open-ended paycheck for her to fill in the amount. Without consulting Dora, her mother had signed the contract. If Dora didn't comply, they'd face penalties. Faced with no choice, Dora reluctantly returned. Pil-seung, oblivious to the real reason, assumed Dora had been moved by his sincerity and kept bowing in gratitude. Though frustrated by the situation, the paycheck softened Dora's anger. She planned to use it to pay off her housing loan and finally invest in her dream home. But her mother's nervous and reaction to this idea raised her suspicions. Meanwhile, BB, furious at losing the lead role, she dumped a cup of coffee on Dora's face. Dora controlled her temper and explained the circumstances, but couldn't provide a reason why they had insisted on her for the role. BB, convinced that Dora was lying, accused her of scheming. Rumors turned that BB's anger started from her feelings for the drama's male lead. Worried Dora might steal her man, BB spread wild accusations. Fed up with the drama, Dora mockingly told her, "If you're so worried about me taking your man, maybe I'll make your fear a reality." While this chaos unfolded, Dora's mother was at a smoky casino, gambling away the paycheck. Her recklessness almost caused a fight with another gambler. Later, during a break on set, Dora was harassed by a wealthy man who mistook her for someone who'd entertain him in private. She rejected his advances and warned him to behave. Fortunately, Pil-seung intervened, threatening to report him for harassment unless he apologized. Though the man reluctantly complied, Pil-seung's attitude made Dora happy. As Dora thanked Pil-seung, she suddenly noticed something familiar about him. His face reminded her of the boy next door she had secretly admired 15 years ago. When she mentioned this, Pil-seung chuckled and insisted it must be a coincidence, claiming he had only seen her on TV. Still, the resemblance stirred something in Dora. Returning to the set, Dora was greeted by the sight of the arrogant and unprofessional male lead. Dora, still angry from BB's earlier attack and accusations about her mother, decided to retaliate in her own way. She deliberately sought out Jin-taek, BB's boyfriend and her male co-star, to stir up trouble in their relationship. True to his reputation as a playboy, Jin-taek didn't take long to flirt back and even suggested dating. Dora played along, neither rejecting nor accepting his advances, but hinted that she would only consider him if he broke up with his girlfriend. Without hesitation, Jin-taek promised to do so. The director, observing this interaction from afar, misread the situation as chemistry between the leads and was happy, unaware that it was the beginning of his worst nightmare. The next day, production resumed, but trouble started immediately. A water truck meant for a rain scene malfunctioned and exploded. Though the team found a workaround by using manual methods, the incident added stress to the crew. Taking advantage of the director's focus on the chaos, Dora distanced herself from Jin-taek under the pretense of work. At one point, Dora attempted to seek refuge by chatting with Pil-seung, but he seemed entirely uninterested in engaging with her. This left Dora to encounter Jin-taek again. Frustrated and desperate to avoid further misunderstanding, Dora was about to confront, yanking his curly hair and leaving him questioning his life choices. Dora tried to explain that she had no interest in Jin-taek, but BB wasn't buying it. Dora panicked, repeatedly denying any involvement with Jin-taek. Pil-seung finally stepped in. BB, furious with Jin-taek for not defending her, dumped him on the spot. Seeing Jin Taek's heartbroken and his gaze, Dora panicked and awkwardly laughed, claiming she had never made any promises to him, and that everything was a misunderstanding caused by his wishful thinking. Jin Taek, feeling betrayed, muttered a string complaint. The director, arriving late to the chaos, was furious and almost declared the shoot cancelled for the day. The next morning, just as Dora prepared to head to the set, her mother insisted she first meet with the investor who had quadrupled her pay and even sent expensive gifts to their home earlier that day. Her mother, eager to secure a powerful ally, had clearly noticed the investor's interest in Dora and plans the lunch as a matchmaking effort. At the meeting, however, the investor's awkward jokes and lack of charm failed to impress Dora. Meanwhile, back on set, Pil Seung nervously assumed that Dora's absence would lead to yet another wasted day of filming. His anxiety eased when Dora eventually showed up, seemingly in a good mood, and even thanked him for stepping in during yesterday's fight. Dora's gratitude triggered a flood of memories from 15 years ago. She recalled her childhood crush, her neighbor, who had once said the exact same words to her. Glancing at the assistant director's curly hair, again demanded her attention. This time, however, he was oddly composed. Instead of whining or admiration was short-lived. Within moments, she realized that Jin Taek wasn't chewing gum or candy. He was eating raw garlic, filling the air with its pungent smell. Shocked and disgusted, she slaps Pil Seung, who had been tirelessly mediating between the two stars. Pil Seung, used to the thankless role of managing behind-the-scenes chaos, calmly expressed his concerns. If you two keep this up, you're not only delaying the shoot, but also wasting the efforts of hundreds of staff members who have been working since dawn. His words struck a chord with Dora. Feeling genuinely remorseful, she stepped forward and apologized to Jin Taek, admitting her mistake. Seeing her sincere attitude, Jin Taek's temper cooled, and he even apologized for his earlier crude words and the garlic incident. The director, relieved by the resolution, decided to push forward with filming immediately. However, Dora still struggled with lingering discomfort from Jin Taek's overwhelming garlic breath. Sensing her unease, Pil Seung appeared with a small peace offering, an ice cream cone. Dora's mood instantly brightened. How did you know I eat ice cream when I'm upset? Pil Seung hesitated before replying. I read it in a magazine article about you once. But Dora grew suspicious. She was fairly certain she had never shared that detail publicly. Her thoughts wandered further. Why did Pil Seung always remind her of her childhood neighbor? Both had the same surname. Later, Dora privately confronted Pil Seung. Do you have a relative named Gao? She asked. Pil Seung froze for a second before laughing loudly and brushing it off. Never heard of them, he said, though his overly dramatic reaction made Dora uneasy. What Dora didn't know was that Pil Seung had indeed recognized her. He had changed his name years ago and deliberately kept his identity hidden. Now, standing before the person whose family had destroyed his life, Pil Seung kept his identity a secret, unsure if he could ever truly forgive her or if he wanted revenge. But Pil Seung, sensing her intention, he quickly excused himself, clearly not wanting to endure any more questions. Despite his avoidance, his presence continued to haunt Dora, and within just a few days, she found herself emotionally drawn to him. Meanwhile, Dora, not wanting to disappoint her older brother, decided to distance herself from Pil Seung. She also wanted to focus on her work, especially after the accident involving a stunt double. When Du Luo offered to take the role herself, Pil Seung, caught off guard by her boldness, he quickly clarified that if she got hurt, the production company wouldn't be able to compensate her. The director, considering the risks, decided to have Pil Seung step in as Dora's stand-in. Pil Seung had to wear women's clothing for the role, which turned him into the talk of the town, especially with his feminine gestures that caused Dora to burst into laughter. Lacking experience in acting, he struggled with even simple scenes, needing multiple takes before getting it right. Exhausted and humiliated, he finally collapsed in an awkward position on the ground, making Dora laugh even harder. That night, Dora's mother insisted on preparing extra soup to bring to Dora as a gesture of goodwill. In her distracted state, Dora forgot her lines for the next scene. When a water splash scene went wrong, Dora found herself at odds with the male lead, who misunderstood the situation. Frustrated with the male lead's petty behavior, Dora would have typically taken a few days off to cool off, but this time, Pil-seung handled the situation with ease, offering comforting words and even bringing her favorite dish. And Dora found herself unexpectedly forgiving him. Later, the director, impressed by Pil-seung's diplomatic skills, tasked him with maintaining peace between the two leads until the shoot was completed. Pil-seung, now in the role of the peacemaker, made sure to flatter Dora every chance he got. Luo was both embarrassed and amused by his attention, but she agreed to cooperate with him on the upcoming scenes. As a small token of appreciation, she thought about buying him an expensive gift, but her agent warned that it might only complicate things further. Following the advice of his agent, Dora bought a hat and asked the agent to invite Jin Taek over. However, when the agent returned, they revealed that Pil-seung had been gossiping behind her back, bad-mouthing Dora to please the male lead. Feeling betrayed, Dora was initially upset but decided to move on and meet Pil-seung for dinner. However, when she suggested it, Pil-seung turned her down, claiming he had other things to do. Disappointed, Dora decided to have sushi instead. Coincidentally, Pil-seung was also at the sushi restaurant with the male lead. In an attempt to gain favor with him, Pil-seung didn't hesitate to talk about Dora's flaws. Dora, overhearing this, stormed out of the restaurant without saying a word, confirming her suspicions that Pil-seung had been the one talking behind her back. Pil-seung chased after her, but Dora refused to be swayed and walked away without looking back. The next day on set, Pil-seung approached Dora to apologize, but her anger only grew, leading her to scold him in front of everyone. She warned him to stay away from her. The director also reprimanded Pil-seung for his actions and suggested he take a few days off to allow Dora to cool down, though Pil-seung feared that taking a break would risk him being fired. Later that afternoon, Pil-seung tried to win Dora back by buying a large amount of fried rice and attempting to approach her, but the contrast between his humble gesture and the lavish gifts from an investor was stark. As Pil-seung sat there eating his rice, Dora's agent brought him a steak and told him to leave, as it was ruining Dora's mood. Feeling hurt, Dora went to a bar to drink away her frustrations. Her agent, concerned, reached out to her, but Dora instead shared the news with the investor. Despite the investor being older than Dora, he was the second son of a prominent financial group. Though she wasn't a frequent drinker, Dora quickly got drunk. Thankfully, the investor didn't take advantage of her and instead escorted her home in a respectful manner. Coincidentally, Pil-seung arrived to apologize just as Dora was getting dropped off. While Pil-seung was about to leave, he overheard the investor making a phone call, revealing that the investor was a well-known playboy in the industry. Next day, Pil-seung learned from the director that the investor had a reputation for being a womanizer. This left Pil-seung thinking deeply about the situation. Pil-seung, after much contemplation, gathered the courage to approach Dora. He tried to advise her, speaking as an older brother, to be cautious when choosing a boyfriend, as he knew how manipulative and deceitful some people in the industry could be. Dora, however, was immediately enraged and slapped him in response. As she spoke, her anger turned to tears. Being one of the top stars in the industry, she had seen her fair share of compliments and backstabbing, which led her to shut herself off emotionally for the past 15 years. Pil-seung had been the first man in all those years to make her feel something, and she had hoped he was different from the others. Pil-seung tried to chase after her to explain himself, but Dora, in her distress, declared that if Pil-seung stayed on set, she would quit acting altogether. The director, realizing the situation, dismissed Dora's outburst as anger and, to keep the filming on track, suggested that Pil-seung take some time off to cool down, even advising him to train for a year or more before returning. After leaving the set, Pil-seung regretted his decision to quit. He knew he hadn't done anything wrong, but the pressure of his family's financial troubles weighed heavily on him. His father had recently lost billions in a scam, and if Pil-seung resigned, the whole family would face financial ruin. In a moment of desperation, Pil-seung decided to come clean to Luo about his true identity. At first, Dora didn't believe him, but when Pil-seung revealed the secret of an incident from their past, when he had secretly stuffed a sock into her shoulder years ago, she finally realized that Pil-seung was telling the truth. Dora's face flushed with embarrassment, instead asking Pil-seung why he had changed his name. Pil-seung explained that his mother had consulted a fortune teller, who advised that Gao Sheng was too powerful and would lead to bad luck, so the name was changed for better fortune. The sudden revelation overwhelmed Dora, but despite the shock, she ultimately forgave Pil Seung in front of the entire crew. Meanwhile, Dora's mother had been secretly troubled by the previous night's behavior of the investor. Over the years, she had earned a fortune, but it had all been lost due to gambling, and she was now deep in debt, owing billions in high-interest loans. In a fit of frustration, Dora's mother decided to approach the investor. She finally confessed that she needed money, hoping he would lend it to her. Before she could leave the investor's company, Dora's mother received a text message. With a thin thread of hope, she turned around and walked into a casino, only to lose the 500 million she owed in one night. Meanwhile, Pil Seung, on a separate part of the set, had to deal with a ridiculous situation where a girl, stranded on a deserted island, refused to relieve herself to maintain her fairy image. Pil Seung, thinking she was practicing martial arts, kept trying to figure out her unusual stance. Pil Seung, after a brief survey, returned to find Dora hesitating in the distance. The morning sunlight filtered through the bamboo mat, waking Dora. She found herself gazing at Pil Seung's sexy hair and curved lips. She playfully thought about stealing a kiss, but just as she moved closer, Pil Seung woke up and asked her 3 times why she was so close. He seemed completely unaware of her intentions. The next day, Dora and Pil Seung were stuck on a deserted island after a sudden storm forced their film crew to evacuate. Dora was surprisingly happy about it, as she had long admired Pil Seung, the man she had secretly had feelings for 15 years ago. Now that they were alone, she saw it as the perfect opportunity to bond with him. However, Pil Seung kept avoiding her and was insistent that their relationship remain private. Dora boldly declared that once she had enough money, she would buy the island so that she and Pil Seung could watch the sunrise together. Pil Seung quickly shut her down, citing his fear that she would use it as an excuse to hit him again. Frustrated, Dora didn't appreciate his response and ended up spending a sleepless night thinking about the Pil Seung and his charm. The next day, Dora arrived at the set with dark circles under her eyes. As she was preparing for the shoot, Pil Seung passed by with another woman, which set Dora off. She almost rushed over to confront them, but stopped herself. To make things worse, the director had planned another scene where Dora and Pil Seung would work together. Dora, eager to be close to him, immediately volunteered to step in and rehearse the scene herself. The director praised her professionalism. However, she misinterpreted the situation, mistakenly thinking that Pil Seung had actually been hurt during the scene and became emotional. Meanwhile, Dora was still distracted by the confusion surrounding her relationship with the investor's son. The investor's mother unexpectedly contacted Dora, urging her to break up with her son and stop dreaming of marrying into a wealthy family. Dora was completely confused, having barely met the investor's son. Unbeknownst to her, Dora's mother was the mastermind behind the drama. She had gambled away all of Dora's earnings and was in massive debt. But Dora's mother's gambling addiction only made things worse. She had even lost the priceless diamond necklace that the investor had given to Dora. The two hadn't seen each other in 15 years, so when they shared a few drinks, they caught up on each other's lives. Dora, curious about Pil Seung's romantic history, asked him if he had a girlfriend. Pil Seung explained that his busy work schedule left him no time for a relationship. Dora was pleased, but couldn't resist asking about his first love, a woman 10 years older than him. When Pil Seung began to cry, Dora realized it was a touchy subject. Pil Seung revealed that years ago, Dora had caused a rift between him and his first love. His first love had promised to marry Bear if he made it into a good university, but when he returned with his acceptance letter, she was already pregnant with someone else's child. It had only been a year since they parted ways, and the memory still hurt him deeply, even after 14 years. This revelation made Dora furious, and she stormed off, leaving Pil Seung behind. Pil Seung, heartbroken, got drunk and wandered the streets, laughing to himself and attempting to flirt with random women. However, his antics backfired when Dora, having had enough, stuck a note on his back that read, "I'm a big idiot." Humiliated, Pil Seung staggered home, only to be caught by his mother, who tore the note off him. Pil Seung, now livid, decided to confront Dora that night, ready for a showdown. Dora was furious and resolute in not admitting anything. However, the next day, Pil Seung sent a simple text suggesting they meet, and Dora mistakenly thought it was a date. Excited, she rushed over, only to find Pil Seung had taken her to a spicy hot pot restaurant and began interrogating her like a criminal suspect. Furious, Dora stormed off, but Pil Seung followed her and angrily questioned why she was acting so childish. Then she asked him if he liked her. Pil Seung's response was strange. He said sorry and turned to leave, but then stopped and coldly declared he didn't like her. Dora thought he was just shy, not realizing that the truth was far more complicated. The truth was that Pil Seung's grandfather had been killed by Dora's mother, creating a barrier between them. Despite this, Dora could still feel Pil Seung's affection for her. Pil Seung confirmed again that he didn't have feelings for her. Just then, the inventor invited Dora to dinner. Likely out of anger or a desire to provoke Pil Seung, Dora agreed to the dinner. Pil Seung didn't attempt to stop her, so she went. But as soon as she sat down at the table, she regretted it. She told the inventor she had to leave early for a shoot, only for him to propose to her with a diamond ring. Stunned, Dora rejected him, explaining she didn't have feelings for him and didn't want to waste anyone's time. The inventor, frustrated by the rejection, flipped out, and Dora fled the restaurant. To her surprise, Pil Seung showed up at the restaurant. Despite his long-suppressed feelings, he had come to find her. As Dora was about to confide in Pil Seung about what had just happened, they were recognized by a group of fans. To avoid causing a scene, they fled into a narrow alley, where their close quarters forced them into an intimate moment. After a prolonged silence, Dora made the bold move to kiss Pil Seung, only to have him freeze. Pil Seung, still processing his emotions, was left speechless. After some tense moments, he finally muttered that he would sue her, but Dora's playful attitude didn't faze him at all. Instead, she smiled and continued teasing him, clearly enjoying the moment. The confrontation ended with Pil Seung angrily making a few formal statements before hurriedly leaving. She was now certain that Pil Seung had feelings for her, especially since she had made the first move. Later, Dora's presence at a shoot stunned everyone. Her combination of charm left both the director and Pil Seung awestruck. But when Dora suggested a date, Pil Seung unexpectedly rejected her, leaving her confused. But when the rejection continued for hours, she realized she needed to take action. To get him to meet her, she pretended to need support, convincing him to join her at an amusement park. After spending the day together, Dora felt elated, only to be interrupted by the inventor, who arrived with flowers, still pursuing her. Dora, already frustrated, made it clear she had no feelings for him, but the inventor insisted on a reason. Annoyed, she told him that no feelings should be enough of an explanation. The inventor, known for his flirtatious ways, wasn't willing to take no for an answer. The investor lent Dora's mother money for 2 days, but in the end, what she feared most still happened. The next day, Pil Seung took the initiative to ask Dora to meet in a quiet corner and confessed that he had indeed developed feelings for her. Dora was overjoyed, but Pil Seung quickly changed his tone, saying they were not suitable for each other. As the son of a middle-class family, he felt unworthy of Dora, a top-tier actress with an annual income of billions. Dora was so anxious that she almost burst into tears and asked if they could date in secret, promising no one would find out. However, Pil Seung still rejected her ruthlessly. That same day, they were filming a scene for the drama The Male Lead Rejects the Female Lead. Dora, who had been holding back her emotions, couldn't control herself anymore and ended up crying uncontrollably on set. The staff thought she had actually fallen for the male lead. This misunderstanding quickly reached the investor. Normally, he wouldn't care, but the male lead in question was a notorious playboy, just like him. During this time, Dora lived humbly. She just wanted to be friends with Pil Seung. Yet, even this request was rejected. Today was the last day of filming. Dora knew this was her last chance, so she told Pil Seung she would wait for him at a cafe. However, even after the cafe closed, Pil Seung never showed up. Meanwhile, Pil Seung couldn't stop thinking about all the moments he had shared with Dora. Deep down, he knew he had already fallen hopelessly in love with this innocent and straightforward girl. After much hesitation, he finally made up his mind and ran to the cafe, only to find the doors already shut. Just as he was about to breathe a sigh of relief, thinking he had avoided making a choice, Dora sent him a message asking where he was. Pilseung lied, saying he was still at work. As he turns around, he saw Dora. Then, without explaining anything, he simply embraced Dora and asked if they could be together. Overwhelmed with emotion, Dora held on tightly. The drama, starring Dora, became an instant hit on its first day, dominating the trending charts. The network executive, in a great mood, treated the entire cast and crew to a grand celebration banquet. Halfway through the meal, the investor showed up uninvited. As the investor, he naturally took a seat at the main table, but Dora didn't want to sit with him. Holding her wine glass, she casually slipped away to join the female colleagues. The investor, seeing that Dora was deliberately avoiding him, what annoyed him even more was Dora's rumored new boyfriend. After a few drinks, the investor dragged his love rival into the restroom without a word and started beating him up. Hearing the commotion, others quickly rushed over to break up the fight. The co-star was completely dumbfounded by what was happening. If this nonsense spread to his girlfriend, he would be doomed. The group called Dora over to clarify the situation, and only then did the investor realize he had misunderstood everything. Feeling pitiful, he tried to explain himself to Dora. However, the incident quickly became gossip fodder for others. Regardless of the truth, people accused Dora of being too flirtatious, using her looks to play ambiguous games with both the co-star and the investor. They claimed it was people like her who ruined the industry. Dora didn't care about these rumors. Her only concern was whether Pilseung believed them. Fortunately, Pilseung not only didn't think that way, but also comforted her, telling her not to pay attention to baseless gossip. The next day, Pilseung took Dora to a remote village for a break. The place was simple, the food was delicious, and, most importantly, there were no obsessive fans. Dora had a great time, experiencing for the first time the freedom of walking around without being recognized since becoming a star. However, as soon as she got home, her mother begged her to forgive the investor and start dating him. Furious, Dora sternly warned her mother to cut all ties with the investor. Her mother, distressed, finally revealed the truth. The investor had threatened her. If she couldn't convince Dora to come back to him within a month, he would blacklist Dora from the entertainment industry, making sure she disappeared from the public eye forever. This was a death sentence for Dora's mother, who was drowning in gambling debt. Without her daughter, her money-making machine, how would she repay the billions she owed? What angered her even more was the news from Dora's manager that her daughter was dating a poor boy. At first, she didn't believe it, but that very night, she caught Dora and Pilseung embracing at the doorstep. With just one glance, she recognized Pilseung as the grandson of the kind landlord who had taken them in 15 years ago. Now even more furious, she accused Pilseung of getting close to Dora for revenge over what had happened back then. Dora, completely confused, dragged her mother back inside. The next day, Pilseung asked Dora to meet and once again insisted on breaking up. His firm and decisive attitude scared Dora, who immediately confronted his mother, asking if she had threatened Pilseung. But her mother denied everything, simply urging Dora to take on more commercial deals while she was still popular. Dora, unconvinced, noticed that Pilseung was also avoiding her calls. Determined to find out the truth, she went straight to Pilseung's home, where she ran into his grandmother. Only then did she learn that her mother had, in fact, caused a huge scene at Pilseung's house the night before. The situation was so bad that Pilseung's mother had fallen ill from the stress. Dora thought this was something that could be resolved, but Pilseung's grandmother disagreed. She told her that their relationship was impossible. Her mother had already set everything in motion, and there was no turning back. Meanwhile, Pilseung's mother, who had a wealthy best friend, every holiday, the rich friend would send her expensive fruits and pastries. Whenever there was a gathering of rich housewives, the friend would bring her along. However, since Pilseung's mother had nothing in common with the wealthy women, she would always sit quietly, eating in silence. One day, the rich friend started talking about her son, finally bringing Pilseung's mother into the conversation. The other women, eager to stay in the rich friend's good graces, immediately offered to introduce their distant relatives to her son. Just as the rich friend was about to agree, she stopped them, saying her son had just broken up. She promised to find him a true high society match once he had settled into his career. Later that night, Pil-seung's mother-husband proposed using her father's house as collateral to borrow $2 billion to start a business with an old friend. Pil-seung's mother immediately saw through the idea as nonsense. Her husband had already lost $3 billion to another friend in a failed business deal years ago. Her mother-in-law, unwilling to hear this, defended her son, claiming he had every right to use the house since his father had bought it. But Pil-seung's mother worried that if things went wrong, the whole family would end up homeless. Her mother-in-law didn't care. The next day, after returning from work, Pil-seung's mother accidentally overheard her husband and mother-in-law whispering about something in a locked room. When she asked what they were up to, they dodged the question, unable to give her a straight answer. At first, she thought her husband and mother-in-law were secretly bad-mouthing her. But the next day, her husband unexpectedly put on formal attire for the first time in ages, saying he had landed a high-paying job at a prestigious company. Pil-seung's mother found it hard to believe he was capable of that, but when he actually received his salary and brought home several hundred worth of beef for a barbecue, along with a silk scarf for her, she started to believe it. However, her happiness didn't last long. Their son got into trouble at work for offending the daughter of the woman who had caused his father's death, and he now faced the risk of being fired. Furious, Pil-seung's mother demanded that he resign immediately, but Pil-seung refused, explaining that he was the one in the wrong, and, besides, the woman's daughter didn't even know his identity. Her husband and mother-in-law sided with Pil-seung, saying that since the woman's daughter didn't recognize him, he should just endure it until the filming was finished. Pil-seung's mother reluctantly dropped the issue, but the more she thought about it, the angrier she became. After stewing over it for an entire night, she warned her son that if he was mistreated again, he should expose the woman's past sins and destroy her daughter's reputation. Before her son could respond, both her husband and mother-in-law immediately objected, saying it was too cruel and inappropriate. This reaction made Pil-seung's mother suspicious. A few days later, her mother-in-law inexplicably lashed out at her, accusing her of caring only about Pil-seung and neglecting her hard-working husband, who went out every day to earn money. Pil-seung's mother was baffled. Her husband wasn't doing hard labor at a construction site. He was just working an office job at a big company. Why was her mother-in-law acting so extreme? It turned out that her husband had actually been working at a construction site, doing manual labor. She wouldn't have known if he hadn't gotten injured and been hospitalized. When she confronted him, he explained that he just wanted to contribute to the family in some way, but since he had no special skills, hard labor was his only option. He had lied about working at a big company to avoid making her worry. Heartbroken, Pil-seung's mother urged him to rest at home and stop working, but this time, her husband was unusually resolute. He insisted on continuing, saying he would start working again as soon as he recovered. Pil-seung's mother couldn't shake the feeling that both he and her mother-in-law were acting strangely, but she couldn't pinpoint why. Then, one day, she unexpectedly ran into her father's murderer. That's when she discovered the shocking truth. Her mother-in-law had secretly gone to Dora's mother and extorted $50 million from her. In exchange, she signed a guarantee that she would never reveal the terrible thing Dora's mother had done 15 years ago. Everything suddenly made sense. That explained why her husband and mother-in-law had been acting so strangely. Enraged, Pil-seung's mother demanded that her mother-in-law return the money, but her mother-in-law admitted it was all gone. She had given it to her son to start a business, only for him to be scammed once again. Devastated, Pil-seung's mother ran to confide in her wealthy best friend. Without hesitation, her friend handed her another $50 million, telling her to return the money to Dora's mother first and worry about paying it back later. She rushed to return the money to Dora's mother, but instead of gratitude, she was met with insults. Dora's mother scoffed at the amount, mocking her for being cheap and calling her shameless. Pil-seung's mother's last shred of patience snapped. She was so disgusted that she didn't even want to look at the woman anymore. Then, in the middle of the night, Dora's mother stormed into their home, accusing Pil-seung's mother of being two-faced. She claimed that while Pil-seung's mother pretended to reject the $50 million on the surface, she was secretly using her son to get close to her daughter, hoping to extort even more money through their relationship. Furious, Pil-seung's mother called her accusations nonsense. She didn't believe for a second that Pil-seung was involved with Dora's daughter. But then Pil-seung himself admitted that they had, in fact, been dating for some time. Pil-seung's mother was so shocked she nearly fainted. The only thing that brought her any relief was that the next day, Pil-seung broke up with Dora, apologizing tearfully. Pil-seung's mother could see her son's reluctance to let go, which only made her feel even more heartbroken. That night, Dora showed up at her door and knelt before her, sincerely apologizing. Her genuine remorse softened Pil-seung's mother's heart, especially when she saw how much pain both of them were in. What worried her even more was that Pil-seung was suppressing his emotions. Every day, he pretended to be carefree in front of her, forcing a smile. But Pil-seung's mother knew the truth. He missed Dora so much that he drank himself into a stupor, yet lied about attending a work dinner, only to lock himself in his room and cry alone. She realized that the longer she dragged this out, the more Pil-seung would suffer. Seeing how sincere Dora was in her apologies, and how she frequently came to their neighborhood just to catch a glimpse of Pil-seung, she could tell she truly loved her son. She decided she couldn't let the grudges of the previous generation dictate their children's happiness. She gave her blessing for Dora and Pil-seung to be together, and even created opportunities for them to spend time alone. The two lovers embraced tightly, finally reunited. The next day, Pil-seung's mother brought some homemade dishes to thank her best friend. Coincidentally, she ran into the head of the financial department, Jin-taek. A few days prior, Jin-taek had met Pil-seung over tea and had taken a liking to him, even considering him as a potential son-in-law. Unfortunately, his wife informed him that Pil-seung already had a girlfriend. This made Pil-seung's mother curious. How did her best friend know about Pil-seung's relationship before she did? After all, just days ago, she herself had been completely unaware. Dora's mother, an avid gambler, lost everything and racked up billions in high-interest debt. Desperate for money, she tried to force Dora into shooting adult photos. When Dora refused, their mother instead tried to marry her off to an abusive, wealthy old man. In despair, Dora chose to end her own life by jumping into the sea. Their younger brother, who was studying abroad on his sister's money, completely cut ties with their mother. Eventually, their mother was arrested for embezzling her late daughter's company funds. The first phase of the series ends here. There will definitely be a second part. Thanks for watching. Drop a heart for part 2.